It's Friday, not our usual drop day, but we have a treat for you to celebrate Emmy nomination season. I love TV, and I especially love when pitch-perfect performances and intricately constructed characters get celebrated. And there's a lot of that this Emmy season. Like Jeff Hiller of the show Somebody Somewhere, and from one of the most fun episodes of Death, Sex, and Money in the last year, he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. Best Drama nominations included some of my favorites, The Pit, The White Lotus, and Slow Horses. Best Comedy nods for Hacks, Abbott Elementary, Only Murders in the Building, and for the show The Studio from Apple TV Plus, starring Seth Rogen and made by Seth Rogen and his childhood friend and longtime collaborator, Evan Goldberg. That show got 23 Emmy nominations. We tore through The Studio in my household. There were at least 3 different occasions when my husband was like, "Let's watch The Studio." And I had to remind him that, sorry, we had already watched the season finale. In particular, the second episode of this show featuring Sarah Polley as a director trying to get this one long, uninterrupted shot that keeps getting interrupted by a studio exec doing moronic things, that episode is worth watching more than once. And so today, we are sharing with you an interview that my interviewing colleague, Sam Fragoso of the podcast Talk Easy, did with Seth Rogen, just as The Studio was coming out last spring. There's a lot I love about their conversation. They both are very close fans, observers, and critics of Hollywood culture and commerce. And they also broke out early in their fields, like super early. Seth started doing stand-up at 13 and was on TV as a teenager in Freaks and Geeks and had a screenplay written with his friend Evan by the time he hit Hollywood. That screenplay would become the classic high school buddy movie Superbad. Sam Fragoso has been making the show Talk Easy since 2016, for nearly 10 years, even though he just turned 30. He started out as a movie critic, and if you listen to the way he writes the top of his interview episodes, you hear that, his keen sense of references, and where his one guest, who he's researched extensively, fits into the broader culture, whether they're a writer, a comedian, an actor, director, or policymaker. If you like how Sam interviews, like I do, follow Talk Easy in your podcast app. And you can also go to talkeasypod.com and look at their archives of incredible guests from over the years. So after the break, I hope you'll enjoy hearing Sam Fragoso talking with Seth Rogen from the podcast Talk Easy.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states and situations.
This episode is brought to you by Marshalls, where you never have to compromise between quality and price. The buyers at Marshalls hustle hard, working to bring you great deals on brand name and designer pieces. Because Marshalls believes everyone deserves access to the good stuff. Visit a Marshalls store near you or shop online at marshalls.com.
This is Talk Easy. I'm Sam Fragoso. Welcome to the show. Today, actor, writer, producer, Seth Rogen. Rogen came of age in an era of abundance, a Hollywood that made big-budget comedies that did real box office. 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, Superbad, Pineapple Express. For a time, roughly between 2005 and 2014, he represented something of a growing contingent in American life, the self-aware, self-medicated man-child, stunted or stoned enough to still act like a boy, yet just aware enough to know that someday soon he'll have to become a man. If the aughts turned Rogen into an emblem for Arrested Development, his next decade was one of lifted productivity. The slack-jawed stoner turned prolific producer. Even his penchant for pot became a profitable business called Houseplant. When he wasn't working behind the scenes on shows like The Boys and Preacher, he was in front of the camera, becoming a really talented, versatile actor. He played Steve Wozniak in Danny Boyle's biopic of Steve Jobs, a lovelorn uncle in Steven Spielberg's deeply personal film, The Fabelmans. Rogen's latest project, however, is the culmination of his experiences with Hollywood at large. The show is called The Studio, and in it, Rogen plays Matt Remick, the newly appointed head of Continental Studios. It's a dream job he's been pursuing his whole life, and has now finally, and rather unexpectedly, landed at his doorstep, for better or worse. Here's a clip from the trailer.
Prestige films and box office hits, those are not mutually exclusive. We can do both, and we will do both.
Matt, I get it. You want to make great art and make $1 billion doing it. Well, guess what? That never happens, and you're going to screw everything up trying to make it happen.
If it was up to me, we'd be focusing on making the next Rosemary's Baby or Annie Hall or some great film that wasn't directed by a pervert.
Turns out perverts make great movies.
They really do.
Lay low, okay? There's zero margin for error on this shot.
Action, please.
Greta, yo, I actually want to talk to you about awards season. Just make sure you keep your winter clear. We have
Okay, Matt.
This job is just so much harder than I thought it was going to be.
Matt!
What up, Matt? Everyone wants something from me, and I can't give it to them.
If you guys are actually open to doing something different, I have a lot of ideas.
We love new ideas.
Just not too new, because we got a pretty tight formula that we got to hit.
I wouldn't say it's a formula so much as a structure that we 100% know works, so we're going to do it over and over again.
Fine is not good enough.
This is racist.
You want to bring down the studio? Why didn't you shut this party down?
Why do you keep lying?
What is wrong with you?
The job makes you stressed and panicked and miserable. But when it all comes together and you make a good movie, it's good forever.
That was from the new show, The Studio, now available to stream on Apple TV+. The first 2 episodes are already out, with new episodes dropping every Wednesday through May 21st. In the pantheon of Hollywood playing itself, The Studio sits at the intersection of Robert Altman's The Player and Gary Shandling's The Larry Sanders Show. We talk about both of those influences in today's episode. We also dive into the lived experiences that inform this new show. Rogen's formative years writing comedy in Vancouver, the self-belief required when it wasn't panning out as quickly as he hoped, the challenges of working inside the studio system itself, and how This Is the End, the meta-comedy from 2013, starring all of his friends and more, was a precursor to this latest project, The Studio. This was a long time in the making, so I hope you enjoyed this conversation with the one and only Seth Rogen. Enjoy. Seth Rogen.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
I have something in my mouth every time you try to speak to me.
I heard you do that as a defense mechanism. Is that true?
I'm constantly just showing things in my mouth.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
How do you feel around this time, about to put something out into the world?
I mean, it all depends. It's in some ways it's already out in the world. Mm-hmm. In that we premiered at South by Southwest, right. And but I either feel really bad or pretty good or somewhere in the middle. And right now I feel pretty good. So on the grand scale of my spectrum, that's like on the very positive end of the spectrum. And I'm very proud of the show. I love that. It's always easy when you genuinely, like the thing that you are generally talking about as you're promoting a thing, and people have started to see it. So I know in general the response is good. So that also this would be I probably wouldn't be here, honestly, if the response was very bad, I would imagine.
You would have canceled on us?
I probably would. I probably would have canceled everything, I would imagine. Yeah.
No, just cancel Talk Easy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I heard you want to say that people crave stories because what stories do is organize experiences in ways that help them make sense of them. Did you arrive at this show, the studio, in an attempt to make sense of the last decade you've had in this industry?
No, I don't think we assumed we would ever make sense of any of it. And I think it was fun to make something that was very personal, that like specifically begged us to really analyze our lives and our
nonsense.
Exactly. And our jobs and, art in general and commerce in general and the relationship between the two. And so in some ways, yeah, it probably was like a contextualizing experience and something that sometimes you need an excuse to really dive into things. And so it was a good excuse to really dive into our jobs and what frustrates us about them and what inspires us about them. And the thing we constantly were asking ourselves was just like, how do we feel about all this? Like that, we felt like that need to come across on the show. And it was incumbent on us to have like a pretty specific opinion on that, And so it really forced us to sort of develop an opinion or articulate our opinion on all this, which is not something that I had necessarily done,
So now that you have, what does that sound like?
I'm someone who's been given a great life by this industry and who has been allowed to kind of live their dreams and in general, like...
That will be the title of the podcast, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Seth Rogen, decidedly good life.
Yes, exactly. It's true. And like, there are things that are very frustrating about our jobs and things that have a lot of conflict. And inherently, that is at the core of Hollywood is like this conflict between art and commerce. And so that's a part of it. But overall, we feel like it's an industry that it's hard to be too hard on it when it's given us so much. And so we are lovers of the industry because we've gotten a lot of great things from it, but we are also at times very frustrated by it and very aggravated and stressed out and panicked over the specifics of it,
I notice when you say aggravated and stressed out, you keep pointing to me.
Yes, exactly. No, I'm pointing. I gesture in general. I gestured outwardly.
Won't take it personally. You and Evan have not directed a movie since The Interview. You've done some TV stuff.
Yeah.
But I would say this show is about as cinematic of a thing as you guys have ever directed.
Yeah.
So the frustrations of the last decade, how did you begin to put them into this program?
I mean, by really kind of drilling down on what we find to be aggravating and frustrating, as I gesture to you more, which is...
Let's do a power ranking of those things.
I mean, and there are things that, like, I think I'm more at peace with in many ways than my character on the show, but, like, there's always an existential crisis in Hollywood because at its core, it is a conflicted industry. And it is art and commerce trying to coexist, as opposed to, like, the finance world, which is commerce trying to exist with no restrictions or limitations to it. You know what I mean? And because of that, different things are winning at different times, basically. And I think it feels like you look back to the 70s, and I think it would be like art was winning more then, you know what I mean? And commerce was following, and movies were doing very well, but they were also great movies. And then, things swing in a direction where streamers come into play and studios start to panic a little bit, and they start to maybe not believe in themselves as much, and they start to, perhaps want to mitigate their risk because they feel like maybe their job is even more unstable because of this seismic thing that's happening below their feet, But
even the age of comedy that you came up in and developed.
Yeah.
The movies were good and they made a lot of money.
Yes, exactly. Like we participated in it, and so
some would say you even benefited.
We very much did. We benefited a lot from it, and so we saw firsthand how those specific movies became much harder to make. And not to say we didn't, we made Good Boys and Blockers and things
which made money.
Yeah, which did well and ticked a lot of those boxes, and for us, I think why we are not miserable people is we recognize like, oh, if we want to keep putting movies in theaters, like we should make Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we should make sure we're able to make it in the exact way we want and able to make something that we really creatively are passionate about, but we understand the parameters of the shifting industry, you know what I mean? And we're like, we can do television because that, I think, as much as film has contracted in many ways as far as what people will make. Television has expanded in many ways as far as what people will make. And so
I think you have a character on the show who says, oh, I don't go to the movies anymore, but TV, oh my God.
If you want real art, you watch television. Yeah.
Do you feel that way?
No, I go to the movies, but I do think they are both very artful, and I do understand that a lot of people do feel that way, and a lot of people have kind of given up on movies
post-pandemic, especially.
Exactly, which is another joke we make in the show. Is like, I'm in the movie since Barbenheimer, basically, which is like a thing. I think a lot of people feel that way, but then at the same time, movies do great, and great movies still do great. And I think that's something that we constantly have to respect and remind ourselves. Like Inside Out 2 is the biggest movie of the year. Like it's a beautiful film, you know what I mean? And these movies can still be very culturally impactful, and not just, things that only film fans love. I think they do still cross over into like the general culture of the world, you know what I mean? And so Deadpool and Wolverine is a perfect example, and so I think a lot of people feel that way, and I think in our darkest moments, we feel as though that is perhaps the way things are going, which is no one cares about movies anymore. Movies are dead, but I actually think that people still do.
We'll get back around to the darkest moments later.
Great.
We usually like to save that for Act 3 of the podcast.
I like their acts.
This show, the studio, is explicitly set in a post-Barbenheimer world.
Very much so.
The character you play, Matt Remick, talks about capitalizing on the Barbie phenomenon.
Yes.
And in turn becomes obsessed with turning the Kool-Aid Man into we hope franchise.
Yeah, but a prestigious franchise. It's an organic goal to have. Yeah.
The studio is called Continental.
Yeah.
And it feels Paramount-like. It's not a streaming service.
Yeah. It's supposed to be like a legacy studio, as they call them. Yeah.
And in the name of Paramount, your character, Matt, is obsessed with the age of Robert Evans.
Yes, very much so.
Who directed who produced The Godfather and Chinatown.
Yeah.
I said directed because a part of him definitely believes he directed.
He probably, if you asked him, he helped.
The show seems to be at the intersection of The Larry Sanders Show, The Player, and a little bit of Veep.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're known for.
Really?
So that's great.
You know what? Interview's done. I think that's it. I think we got it.
Yeah. We were first and foremost influenced by The Larry Sanders Show. And that's like me and Evan, who grew up together, and the creator and my co-director and writer. That was on when we were like in high school, and we were obsessed with it in high school. And we would watch it all the time. And
even at house parties, I heard you would sneak out.
We would like be in the parents' bedroom at a house party watching Larry Sanders Show as all of our friends were getting drunk in the basement, and which really speaks to who we are, and so we loved it. And then when I moved to LA, I kind of Judd and Pete and Alex were actually, I've known them since I came out, and they had all worked on the Larry Sanders Show. But also it was a very human show. Like it was just about like a sad guy trying not to humiliate himself, which I also related to.
To tell you the truth, I didn't even need to be there for the fucking Saget interview.
Good show.
All I said was, hi, Bob, bye, Bob. I could have been working at a Jack in the Box.
Oh, don't diminish yourself. Anyone with less talent would have tried to interrupt you.
I don't know that that's necessarily true. It just seems to me... Oh, Bob.
Did I go on too long? Was I rambling or anything?
Absolutely not. You were great. Love your work, Bob.
Yeah, I love the one where the man gets hit in the nuts with a wiffle ball. Anytime.
Come back anytime, Bob.
Thanks.
Sure.
Is that how you see your character, Matt?
Yeah, he has a tragic job, I think, and I think his personality makes it even more tragic. And we talked a lot about that as we were writing the show, is like, how do we make a character that has like a fundamentally comedic conflict at play, which is, he loves movie stars, but they don't want to talk to him, and he loves directors and he has to break their heart, and he loves movies and he has to make them more. He doesn't have to, but he's constantly making the choice whether or not to, and at his own peril, and so, and the Larry Sanders Show is similar in a lot of ways, where he's so technically like a high status character, but you always feel really bad for him,
You said that the job that Matt has, the studio executive or the studio head, is a tragic job.
Yeah.
And in the process of making this program, you interviewed a bunch of studio executives.
Yeah. It's not a tragic job for all of them.
like a Ted Sarandos.
Yeah, it's not tragic for him. I didn't interview him specifically, but he's someone I've known for a very long time and have talked to a lot about his job over the years. Yeah.
So who describes it as tragic? And who has a sense of humor about it?
I think the higher you ascend, the less tragic you think it is, basically. And I think the lower on the ladder you are, the more tragic you think it is. And the tragedy probably dissipates as you ascend, As you ascend further and further from other people. Yes, exactly. From having to feel the influence of their emotions.
Something approximating emotion and feeling
exactly.
and human tension.
You insulate yourself from all that.
I heard that's what you're trying to do as well these days.
Actively, on a moment-to-moment basis. But
I'm glad you didn't point to me on that.
But I think, the ones who actually get to make the choice as to what movies get made and which ones don't, they feel very empowered, and it's a power they wield. The ones who are constantly right outside that are the ones who have a more tragic job, because not only are they caught between art and commerce in a very direct way every single day, but they're kind of dealt a hand and have to live with it. They don't even get to be the ones that are actually pulling the trigger on which way to go. They're the ones who have to tell the director that they're making their movie dumber, and they don't even want to be the ones doing it. And it wasn't even their idea. They just are like mouthpieces for the people above them. And that's very tragic, especially when you love movies,
In your experience, are most studio executives artists in hiding?
They might say that. I think most studio executives love movies. And I think that's actually like a big misconception, is that people think people who work at studios are just like only care about money. And the truth is there's like so many other industries you can go into if you only care about money, So I find that, most of the studio executives that I interact with genuinely love movies and genuinely view themselves as contributive to movies when they're doing their jobs well, and subtractive to movies when they are forced to compromise. And there are people who actually don't care about movies in Hollywood, and they're more at like the CEO level, I find. You don't interact with that much, and they're not the ones really choosing which movies get made. But the people who do choose are responsible to report to those people, you know what I mean? And they're scary figures because they are involved in the movie industry, but actually are not movie lovers,
Tech companies have, including Apple, have gotten into the movie business.
Yes.
And I think that has been a fear for many people, which is these are tech people, not film people.
Yeah, but they mostly hire film people to run their divisions,
right. So you think that's kind of overblown?
I do. It's always shifting and moving, and everything's always evolving. So, I think it's always scary when things change. So I get why people are inherently scared of the tech world, especially in general, not one traditionally the best track record, But what I found is,
by the way, spoken like someone who was in the Steve Jobs movie.
Yeah, exactly. But we've been incredibly creatively empowered by tech companies, and we've been incredibly creatively stifled by traditional studios in the past. And so I'd say it's a good combo of both.
I'm curious, with the industry contracting in the way that it is right now. In the show, there are jokes about DEI initiatives.
Yeah.
Going out the window, the acceleration of AI. The show is coming off a double labor strike, a historic double labor strike.
Yeah.
I think the sentiment around studio executives, I would say charitably, is not sentimental.
No, not at all.
But you and Evan, because the writing is strong and compelling, offer the character of Matt and his colleagues a degree of empathy. You are coming from a place of trying to understand.
Yeah.
I'm curious, after the past couple years in Hollywood, did you feel a push to be more critical of the industry?
No, I'd say that was always something that was interesting to us. If anything, I think over the last few years, we've found optimism that maybe was unexpected,
where did you find that?
Well, Barbenheimer is actually a great example. We started writing the show during COVID, basically. So when we were writing the show initially, it was there was a real sense of maybe this will all go away. And maybe we were a part of the last heaves of Hollywood,
Maybe The Interview is our last movie.
Exactly. And then COVID ended, and after the pandemic, as we were writing the show, Barbenheimer happens, and there's a moment where movies are not only incredibly successful, but they occupy culture in a way that I think people thought was never going to happen ever again, maybe. And maybe
as an actor, did you feel like sort of slighted by the fact that you didn't get the role of Ken or
Barbie
or Oppenheimer
or Oppenheimer, any of them? There was a moment where I was like, am I the only Caucasian actor not in Oppenheimer? Where I was a little, I'm like, you got Betty Softy and David Krumholtz. There's not one more Jew around in that. But it forced us to reimagine our entire perspective around Hollywood in many ways, which is that it is still possible and you can still do it. And that's almost what's more frustrating at times, is that there's this like, golden ring that is still dangling in front of you of like, oh, maybe I can be the person that like saves Hollywood. And that's like something that I think studio executives genuinely feel. And it's because it's happened. Like, Hollywood is an industry that was markedly affected by singular people. You know what I mean? Like, George Lucas completely changed the course of the industry. Steven Spielberg completely changed the course of the industry. And Robert Evans completely changed the course of the industry. Ted Sarandos completely changed the course of the industry. Like, and a lot of people want to be that person. And that was something that we thought that weekend showed us how much that was still possible. And it was a great thing for the character, because we were like, oh, my character should be someone who's very inspired and who genuinely, delusionally thinks they can be the person to save Hollywood, So
with all of that optimism, all of that belief in self, Matt gets the job of studio head.
And instantly sells out.
And early on in the first episode of the show, once installed in the new position, he goes to visit his mentor, played by Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah.
Why don't we play a clip from that?
Oh, you poor thing. You have to kill Martin Scorsese's movie. I killed one of Warren's movies in '88, and he never slept with me again.
I have the same fear with Marty.
So, how do you feel in all this?
I've worked obviously a long time to get here. My parents are very thrilled, very proud. I think Griffin is, optimistic with the plan.
Maddie, not one of those words is about how you feel.
Yeah, I feel miserable, honestly. I'm anxious, I'm stressed out, panicking pretty much all the time. I was so much happier 2 weeks ago when I was just angry and resentful that I didn't have this job. I would give anything to be angry and resentful compared to how I feel right now. I walk past the tour guide every morning, and they say that the office was built as a temple to cinema, but it feels much more like a tomb.
Heavy as the head, Maddie.
Yeah, I'm honored, obviously, to be one of the people that gets to choose, which movies get made and which ones don't. That's huge. And I got into all this because, I love movies, but now I have this fear that my job is to ruin them.
The job is a meat grinder.
I got into this job because I love the movies, and now I feel like it's my job to ruin them. That was something that was told to you and Evan in 2000, right?
Yeah, we were getting notes on a screenplay we were writing that never got made. And yeah, the executive was clearly caught in this exact conflict where he had he knew what his bosses were expecting of this script, and he knew the direction that he thought was better for it. And he knew that those two things were at odds, and he was doing the thing that would not get him fired. And he was telling us to change things that he himself didn't believe we should change. And then, yes, he hung his head and said, I got into this because I love movies, and now it's my job to ruin them. And I think it made us really understand that, like a lot of these studio executives do love movies and are genuinely at conflict. And something that was said to me very early on, probably by Judd or someone, was like, it's, like they call it show business for a reason. And those two things have to coexist. And it's not show, but it's not business. Like, it's show business. And they are the two heads of this,
That does sound like Judd Apatow.
Exactly. And so these were like the things being instilled with us when we were like early on in our career. And so I think it was helpful, but it made us very sympathetic to the people we were dealing with. And as producers and writers, like, you interact with studio executives a lot. And so I think the more you understand where they're coming from, the better all those interactions are. And we always viewed them as people who wanted generally to do right by us and by the creative world at large. But
you think in your experience, most of them wanted to do right by you?
I think on a person-to-person basis, the executives, that I interact with want to be making things better and are constantly having to weigh whether or not that might get them fired.
The first time you received notes from someone that was paying you was around the age of 13. You're in Vancouver, where you had been hired to write material for a Moyle.
Yeah.
Which obviously, who hasn't?
As many comedic writers begin their path.
And podcasters, that's how it works.
Exactly.
Before podcasting, it's bits for Moyle.
You were Moyle writing.
Before we get to the punchlines, can you set up the story for us?
I started doing stand-up comedy when I was like 13. My mother would drive me to shows, and after a show, when I was 13 or 14, I was approached by a Moyle. And the Moyle explained to me that...
You seem almost embarrassed telling this story.
I'm still in shock that it's true, because it seems crazy. And I'm still amazed that the Moyle had the instinct of like, I should be funnier up there.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's such a funny and a very specifically Jewish thought to have as well, is like, I should put people at ease with humor. But humor is such a risky thing. And if it goes bad, you've done the opposite of put people at ease. You know what I mean?
Do you think he turned to a kid for help?
Because I was closer to the age of the people being circumcised. It's probably because he thought I was cheaper, I would imagine. And I was good enough. Like, I think he weighed economy and quality.
They don't call it business.
Exactly. It's show business. And I was at the cross section. And so, he
offers you $500.
Yeah. Well, no, he says he'll pay me like $50 a joke. So I got to write like 50 jokes and maybe I'm only getting paid for 10 of them. And I write all these Moyle jokes. My friends thought for sure I was going to be murdered and molested, maybe. I don't know in which order, but they thought I was insane for going and hanging out with this Moyle who would pick me up from school in his, like, Ferrari. Like, the most, like, kid-alluring car you could possibly imagine. And I remember my friends just watching me get in this Moyle's car, being like, we're never going to see you again. But no, to the contrary, he just offered me some less than I would have hoped for the jokes that I had written.
So you're at the diner.
We're at White Spot, which is a Canadian restaurant chain. Yeah.
So you show him the jokes.
I show him the jokes. Yeah.
And he likes a few of them. I have some of them here if you want to read them for the audience.
Sure. This was a joke where, yes, he would gesture to the kid he's circumcising and say, he's going to be the coolest dude in preschool. How many kids his age can say they survived a knife fight?
That's good.
This is a very Canadian-specific joke. I used to work in Winnipeg, but I had to move to Vancouver. You see, there's not a lot of work for a Moyle who shivers uncontrollably. That's like that's speaking to your base audience, which is Canadians who know it's cold in Winnipeg.
Actually, we actually have a nice base in Canada.
There you go. Good. Give it up for our musical act, The Slice Curls.
Yeah, that one's tough.
That was a timely one.
Yeah.
Now give me a moment as I oil up the chainsaw. That was
do one more.
The only problem with being a Moyle is you get used to the ceremony. Last night I found myself going through a half-hour service before I cut a carrot for my salad. It's a little sweaty. It's a long walk, but he got there.
Hey, it's about the destination.
Exactly.
It's about the journey.
Whoa.
So he negotiated with you.
Yes.
Saying, I'm only going to pay for some of these.
For the jokes I like.
And you as a teenager.
Yes.
Say what?
I think I said you got to pay me for all of them.
As a I read that story in your book.
Yeah.
I guess I was struck by the gumption of you as a teenager going, I'm going to negotiate with this grown man who is trying to cheat me out of some money.
Yeah.
Like, you held your ground.
I did. I really wanted money. I was only doing it for money. I knew this was not like a career longevity play. I wasn't going to be writing Moyle jokes for the rest of my life. So I couldn't extract what I needed from him in that moment. Yeah, and I don't pick a kid up in a fucking Ferrari and then cheap out on paying him for his jokes, for God's sakes. Like, come on.
Did he make you split the bill at the diner?
No, I walked out of there. I was like, I'm not even going to wait for this bill. I'm going home.
So in that period, like, you and Evan are buddies.
Yep.
You guys watch American Pie.
It was some other high school movie.
Right.
Yeah.
But it just didn't feel like your high school.
No.
And you two thought, we could write this.
Yeah. We were like, let's try to write a movie based on our experience in high school, basically.
Every teenager says that.
Do they?
Every teenager is like, oh, this movie sucks. We could do a better thing.
We actually did it.
You actually did it. Where did the confidence come from to do it?
No, it was sort of like a mixture of confidence and like delusion, and like I was doing stand-up at the time, and I was doing stand-up with adults who made their living doing stand-up, and I would start to tell jokes that were like some of the things that became like scenes in Superbad, basically, you know, about wanting to hook up with girls and trying to buy beer and stuff like that. And I saw that like it was really landing, and that people really seemed to be like connecting with our like very lived in version of what it was like to be in high school. And so like there was like encouraging things, I guess, where we were like sort of led to believe like people like this, like maybe this could work. And we also were big fans of like independent film. And at that time was really when like Clerks and Rushmore and we loved like very cheap movies. And so we were like, worst comes to worst, like we could just make this. Like we should write a movie that's set like on the street and in houses and in places that are easily accessible. And if no one else wants to make it, then we'll just make it. We weren't writing like some alien epic. Like we were writing something that was like very obtainable, we thought. We were wrong. It took a very long time to get the movie made. But that was really like our thought process. We might as well try, you know?
Well, when you land the part on Freaks and Geeks,
yeah,
you go to Los Angeles and Judd becomes a kind of mentor to you. Would he let you into the room to listen to the notes process?
Yeah, he would let me like listen in on the calls. And that was actually another one of the like building blocks for the show, was something I always remembered, is he was like, what you have to remember is all these people are at like a 10 out of 10 panic all the time. Mm-hmm. And they feel, rightfully so, that anything they say or do in any moment might end their entire careers, basically.
But you were 16 in that room hearing grown-ups.
They didn't sound like grown-ups.
Sorry. And they never did.
Exactly. And he started when he was very young. So I think the fact that I was young, he really didn't view me as like a novelty. He saw that I was really dedicated to this and really wanted to do it. And so he, was like outwardly instructive and went out of his way to sort of mentor me and usher me through the specifics of how the industry works, you know? And I would write scenes for Freaks and Geeks and try to get them on the show. I would pitch episode ideas, like, and I had already written Superbad. I was still working on it, but like there was a draft of it. So I think he also saw that like I had completed a screenplay.
That you and Evan are serious.
Yeah, it wasn't like a joke to us. That like we really wanted to do this.
All right, so you moved to Los Angeles, and then you drop out of high school.
Uh-huh.
Before you do that, there is an excerpt from a high school yearbook that I wanted you to read.
Oh, no.
Of you at about 16, 17.
This is legitimately embarrassing.
Getting... This is the most red you've been in this whole interview.
Yes, it's actually embarrassing.
You wrote a book called Yearbook.
Yes.
Which is getting a lot of promo here today. But this quote is not actually in this book.
Oh, no, I did not put that quote in that book.
So here you are.
Oh, yes.
Age 16, 17, something like that.
I wrote, ever since I started earning more than my own teachers, everything fell into perspective. I'm someone who grew up with no money, which was also a part of I had a real chip on my shoulder. I'm accepting of the fact that I very may well never have another job, and in time may have to burn this very yearbook to keep warm. However, right now, if feeling good were a train, I'd be the engineer. I was probably very high when I wrote that.
Why does that make you so embarrassed? Like,
it's just so silly.
You were a kid that like believed in themselves, though.
Yes, I was a kid who believed in themselves. No, I'd say the swipe at my teacher's salaries is probably the thing that maybe I would rework were I to write that again today. But
definitely tough for them.
It is. Yeah, it's embarrassing in some ways, but I stand by it in others.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point of Talk Easy, is we want to make sure you stand by
the humiliating things I've done.
I don't know what they told you about this show. I found that, one, to be funny, and two, kind of incredible in the way that when you're young and making stuff, in some ways you're more bold.
Oh, for sure. I was much more confident when I was younger. Like, I had never failed, you know? I failed in some ways, but like I think I took quality for granted, you know? I was very lucky in that, like, a lot of the first things I did just turned out well, and that doesn't always happen, you know?
But, even with that, Freaks and Geeks is fantastic.
Yeah.
But it was canceled.
It was canceled. I think that's where some of the more critical parts of our view of networks and studios and things like that comes from, is my first foray into it, yes, was, great work and everyone loved it and it was, very well received. And then the head of the network just like didn't get it. And so he didn't support it and they kind of set it up to fail. And a lot of these things are self-fulfilling prophecies in a lot of ways, And so, yeah, I also saw very quickly like how bad a bad executive can be, Did
you find that demoralizing at the time? Or was it in some strange way liberating to know it's out of your control?
I think it gave me like a chip on my shoulder that motivated me and probably wanted me to prove people wrong and probably gave me like an animosity that fueled me, and I was a lot angrier back then at the industry in general because I wasn't successful, and so
What did Seth with a lot of animosity look like?
I was like smoking weed on Jason Segel's couch, just kind of whining about everything and complaining I wasn't getting sent on the auditions he was getting sent on and getting sent the scripts he was getting sent, and that I was working so hard writing Superbad and Pineapple Express, and I thought they were these great screenplays, and meanwhile I was like struggling to get auditions for things that I thought were so much worse than the stuff that I was writing, and yeah, it was a lot of that. You were getting an earful of that if you were hanging out with me in 2003.
But that feeling of going, God, I'm working so hard at something and people just don't seem to give a shit.
Yeah. I still see it a lot. I know a lot of people who live with that on a day-to-day basis,
How did you hold on?
Because there's no option to even quit if you're a movie person, I think.
It was too late.
It's too late. Like,
you already had the thing in the yearbook.
Yeah, exactly. How do you come back from that? And everyone's like that here. Or not everyone, but I'd say like the grand majority of people are dedicated to trying. And I think they understand that if they get old and never will made anything, that they will look back and know they tried and not know that they gave up. And I think that is a more comforting thought to many people, myself included.
After the break, more from Seth Rogen.
Abercrombie Kids is bringing the ultimate first day energy back to school. It all starts with on-trend outfits for that front door photo shoot, plus the coolest tees, shorts, and jeans to take them through the rest of the year. Get them ready for their close-up and keep them comfy too. Make this grade their best one yet. Shop all things back to school, in-store, online, and in the app.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
When kids don't play, they grow up without creativity. They'll try to blend in and wear chinos. Or worse, polyester chinos. Good thing Gushers, Fruit by the Foot, and Fruit Roll-Ups are made to be played with. You better be playing.
You said recently, I think movies are a good indicator of the culture. In that period of your early movies, though, like The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Super Bad, Knocked Up, if you're thinking about movies as a cultural indicator, what do you think those signified?
I think it's signified, like, in some ways, like a discomfort with how outwardly masculine or in a way misogynistic, a lot of movie narratives were becoming, you know what I mean? And I think growing up with those things and how sexualized they were and how comfortable everyone was with how sexualized they were. And I think as awkward guys who weren't that cool, we felt a lot of discomfort with that stuff. And we loved American Pie when it came out, but I think Superbad in many ways is like the exact opposite of that movie. You know what I mean? Even though they're kind of about the same thing at face value, I think our attitude towards it is completely based on fear, whereas their attitude towards it is completely based on desire, you know? And it's the same thing with 40-Year-Old Virgin. Like, it's about a guy who's like afraid to have sex. And that is not who would have been the protagonist in it. You know, we grew up with like 10, like, you know, it's like all about all horny people. It's like their movies were like the theme is horny.
And they're weirdly confident about it.
Yes, and they're very confident about it. And that was just not how we felt. And I think those movies really were like explorations in kind of coming away from those types of narratives, you know?
You didn't feel confident?
No. Not at all.
Did the movies doing well help you with being confident?
I don't think so. I mean, I think with work in it is one thing, like, but I don't know if it helped my moment-to-moment confidence, you know, and I've had moments where my career is going great and my personal confidence is not that high, and I've had moments where my career is not going that well and my personal confidence is pretty good. So I think there isn't as much of a correlation, I guess. But for sure, when stuff is coming out, I feel more vulnerable, and if the stuff is received well, I'm definitely happier than I am if it's not, you know?
I'm thinking about, like, leading into This Is the End.
Yeah.
Which is the first movie you and Evan directed.
Uh-huh.
I rewatched it the other week, and I was thinking, like, oh, this is a kind of precursor to the studio in some ways.
For sure, yeah, definitely.
Where are you at on that movie? Like, how do you think about it now?
I'm so proud of it. I think it's so funny. I'm amazed we pulled it off. It's one of those things I look at it, and I'm like, it's such a crazy idea that the fact that we...
Definitely Larry Sanders inspired.
For sure. And it's something me and Evan had joked about for a long time, because we also are like, we're fans of like genre. Like, we grew up loving horror movies and monster movies and very violent movies. And, you know, and so the fact that we were able to really combine our love for, like, you know, meta commentary and kind of blurring the line between real and not real with like an incredibly crazy genre play, while also kind of being about religion and morality and friendship, you know, it's something that I'm very proud of. And I think it's, and I'm so, it was so much fun to do. And it was a group of people that we had all come up together. And I think there was a sense as we were doing it, honestly, where we were like, this is maybe the last time we'll ever get to do something like this. And so we should really enjoy it and try to make it great, you know?
What do you mean by that?
It just, we could already feel like we were also kind of going in different directions and kind of developing our own careers. And there was some sense of just like the odds that this happens again are small, you know?
Yeah. Is that how it played out in the aftermath? I mean, friendship-wise and creatively?
No, I still work with some of those people, and they still come around.
But it felt like an end of an era of some kind.
It did a little bit. It felt like the end of this like raucous R-rated comedy era that we kind of had been part of ushering in the previous decade, basically, you know? And I could just see like Jonah was about to go be in Wolf of Wall Street, and McBride was doing his own shows, you know what I mean? And it did just feel like, yeah, we were kind of going in our different directions. Everyone was just getting a little older and kind of developing new interests. And
people are having kids.
Exactly. And so it did feel like maybe like a good bookend to what we'd been doing together in some ways. Yeah.
It's amazing that you have a document of the end of something.
Yeah.
It's like both your movie, but also in some ways a snapshot of where you all were at.
Yeah, and it was a very personal thing, and we thought a lot about that movie as we were writing this show, you know, like Superbad felt like a definitive work of our teen years, and Pineapple Express felt like a definitive work of our 20s when we were just spending a lot of time sitting around smoking weed and not really maximizing our potential, and this is the
complaining on Jason Segel's couch
exactly
era.
and this is the end felt like a very definitive representation of our 30s, as far as we were becoming much more successful and famous, and our friend groups were going in different directions. People's priorities were shifting, and we were really outwardly exploring like what could be a definitive look at our 40s. And this idea was also born of that like thought process.
So in writing The Studio, it does feel like a spiritual sequel, I guess, to This Is the End, or at least there's some lineage between the two.
For sure. Yeah. And I think it just speaks to like our taste and creative sensibility is like, we just like things where that blur the line between the real world and the fictional world, you know?
After This Is the End, you make The Interview.
Yep.
and you had this quote where you said, "It was something that for sure we felt like we burned our hands on the stove. I don't think it's a coincidence that we haven't directed a film since."
Yeah, probably. We've tried. And we've had opportunities to as well.
But that film, you know, you told Dave Chang this thing on his Netflix show that I thought was so good, where you're like, oh, in talking about the notes process as we have throughout, you're like, that one could have used...
Could have used more scrutiny.
Do you still feel that way?
I mean, it is funny that I think it was one of the easiest paths we've had to production because we were kind of coming off this string of hits, and, you know.
Do you think you need that friction?
No, but I think something we say a lot is friction makes fire. And that has been a joke that me and Evan have said amongst each other, but is actually true in some ways when it comes to the creative process. I do think sometimes a longer path to production helps because someone second guesses everything at some point or another, and often that helps things. I don't know if we had waited longer, got more notes, if that movie wouldn't have started a war. but it's a fun thing to hypothesize.
That fallout was especially insane.
It was a lot. But I think the show also wouldn't have happened without that happening, because it granted us access to this like whole upper level of studio bureaucracy that we would have never been exposed to otherwise.
Right.
You know, we were all of a sudden with like the CEOs of the company, not the people who are running the day-to-day of the studio, you know, and those are the people who are scary, and those are the people who actually don't care about movies and just care about money, you know, and those are the people that we found to be terrifying.
Did you interview Michael Linton for this show?
I wish. I don't know if we're on speaking terms.
I have a feeling you may not be, and only for one reason, which is you do compare him to the devil in your book.
I do, yes. Several times.
People famously don't love that.
It's like that joke in Crimes and Misdemeanors where Woody Allen's like, you'd think no one had ever been compared to Mussolini before.
Speaking of Crimes and Misdemeanors, the Sony hacks of it all.
Yeah.
Let's call it a segue.
It's a good one.
Were you more upset about the circus around it, or the fact that in the middle of the circus, people still went out of their way to talk about how they didn't like the movie?
That was far more offensive to me, for sure. From an ego standpoint, 100%.
Like Nick Kroll going to your charity event and saying, quote, "Your failure to wrangle James Franco's performance gave the whole movie tonal problems."
Exactly. That's a scathing indictment of the film itself. And he's right. That's the worst part. I know he's right.
On the other side of that, emotionally, that first quote of like, we were kind of gun shy after that.
Yeah.
I sense like emotionally and ego-wise, you were a little wounded. You're a little like, oh God.
For sure.
We tried really hard to make something and
no one liked it. and some people really didn't like it. And actually, I'm amazed and grateful at how many people actually come up to me and Evan telling us how much they love the movie, which is very lovely. And I think since its release, it has sort of found more fans, you know.
Oh, you pointed to me again.
Exactly. You're one of them, kind of. So I think... Kinda. You said you kind of liked it.
Well, look, it's not my favorite.
Exactly. It's not mine either.
You've made better things, but I do like it.
There's funny parts. But I think the combination of things were a bummer. That it was so much in the spotlight and it was not being viewed as our best work. And I think that was...
And people were reading some of your emails.
Exactly. That I was honestly, I was much less embarrassed about that than the fact that like people were just like outwardly shitting on the quality of it, you know? Like truthfully, that's really mostly what I care about is I just want the work to be good and to be able to stand by it, and so I honestly, the thing that was the most wounding was that it was like the butt of the joke.
The year before you made This Is the End, and you thought this is kind of the end of an era.
Yeah.
And then the next year you made The Interview, and it was like, no, this is definitely the end.
No, this is the end of an era. No, this is the end. Honestly, and one of the most frustrating things is like The Interview was going to do well. Even before any of that stuff, it was tracking to be one of our more successful movies. And that was also a hit movie is a thing that is like, you could make movies your whole life and never have a movie be successful. And so that was also something that was like stripped from us in a way that at the time was very hurtful and damaging. Was like, we were going to have a hit movie. And that's also a good revenge when people don't think the movie's good, is at least it makes money sometimes and you're able to rub that in their faces. But we weren't given that opportunity.
But at least you got to come on this podcast 10 years later.
You know what? And gesture towards you freely.
So how do you and Evan find your way back to confidence and, not feeling wounded and ready to write again?
I mean, we'd been writing the whole time also, we just didn't have an idea until the show that felt like it was the thing we should really try to put all of ourselves behind.
Right.
And
for you to star in.
Yeah. And one of the things we ask ourselves when we're going to direct something is like, we're very fortunate that we have access to a lot of great directors for our work. And we're like, are we the only people who could direct this thing? And that was really clear on This Is the End, is we were like, no one will do this unless we're directing it. And that became a similar thing with the studio, where it was like, we felt that like, in order to actually do what we wanted, we had to be the ones to direct it. Like we were going to direct the pilot for The Boys, but we were asking ourselves that question. We were like, are we the only people who could direct this? And we were friends with Dan Trachtenberg, who's a great director. And we were like, honestly, he could probably do it better than us. And if he is willing to do it, then we'll step away and he should do it. And if he isn't willing to do it, then we will do it.
I want to talk about writing for a second. You and Evan, you started writing at 13.
Yeah.
And the two of you worked very much in real time. In Superbad, it wasn't remember when that happened. It was, this just happened today.
Yeah.
We're putting this in the movie. And a lot of the work that you two made and were part of came out of that. I mean, your friend Will Reiser and his story turned into 50/50.
Yeah.
For the memoir yearbook, you interviewed old classmates and spoke to them about the experience. For the studio, you're interviewing studio heads, you're talking to executives. It's very lived in.
Yeah.
I think for most people, as they get older, their world does get smaller. And the majority of your time now is spent working on projects, writing, producing, Houseplant, your company, all of this. When your world gets smaller like that, is it harder to write about lived experiences? Are there just less of them?
I think it's what we're aiming for, but it's not the only thing we pull from, and we, like Ninja Turtles is not based on our lived experience, you know what I mean? But
that would have been incredible if it came out and you're like, this is our most personal project to date.
And it is very personal in many ways, but it isn't based on us explicitly, you know what I mean? But we developed The Boys, Preacher, all these shows, like they were not very based on our personal experience. They were just things we loved and things that we knew we would be fans of if they were out in the world. So there are two categories of thing to me and Evan, which is like the highly personal thing and the thing that as movie lovers or TV lovers, we would just be thrilled if someone else made that and we would get to watch it. So why not be the ones who are making it?
Does weed help with the writing? I ask that because in this book, you have this line, unfortunately, as well designed as people are, we just aren't completely cut out for this world we live in. We need shoes, sunblock, exercise, toilet paper, and weed. I'm not quite cut out for this world, but weed makes it okay.
Yeah, and it's not a feeling that I hold a lot of stigma towards, you know what I mean? And I think people are very selective as to like what they stigmatize, And the idea that we're not cut out for this world is commonly accepted, as is evidenced by the many accoutrements we need to get by in the day-to-day world. You know what I mean? Yeah, like, I think people are very weird about their brains as well. That's like something I've found in general is people are uncomfortable with mental health and talking about that kind of thing and accepting that maybe your brain could use some help as your feet or eyes or hands can when it's cold, you know? And to me, that just isn't a thing I'm uncomfortable with, I guess. Yeah, and it's a thing that I just fully recognize in myself, you know? And a thing I stopped really thinking a lot about 20 years ago.
When you testified before Congress, you called yourself a self-medicated man-child.
You know, I'm going for laughs, but yeah.
They got laughs.
Yeah.
Getting laughs in that building.
Try to get, you know, you do what you can.
Have you found weed to be the best medicine for your brain?
Yeah, and sometimes no weed is the best medicine for my brain. Like, I actually find weed does the exact opposite as a lot of people think. Is like, if I'm anxious, weed does not help. Like, weed makes me more anxious if I'm very anxious. And I actually smoke much more weed when I'm just kind of happy and relaxed than I do if I'm stressed out about something, you know? But for me, it's, for whatever reason, just always something I've enjoyed and gravitated towards. And I never find it muted my emotions or anything like that, you know. I wish it would at times, but it does not. I just stopped thinking about it eventually. Just as one stops being critical of themselves for not having feet that don't need cushioning beneath them, you know.
Bringing us back to this new show.
Another segue.
In the show, Matt has a lot of anxieties that are very on the surface and big. When you say you wish we'd muted some of those, what is that for you? Like, it's not on the surface the way it is for Matt and your character.
No, I hide it much better. I'm a much better actor than Matt is. And that was a very specific trait that I wanted to reflect is I've worked with a lot of executives over the years who have bad poker faces and who you see every ounce of anguish, you know, oozing through their pores. And it doesn't even look like they're trying to hide it.
And you're saying your poker face is good?
I'm much better at suppressing and concealing my emotions. But it's still a pain in the ass sometimes. Yeah, I'm getting older. My body is doing weird things. You know, I think all that it's a lot to shoulder at times.
Speaking of things changing, the film industry is going through it. We talked about it in the beginning. I want to bring us back to the show.
Great.
What does it say about the industry that you and Evan have made a TV show on Apple about the love of movies instead of a movie about the love of movies?
We could have made a movie about it. It would not have been as well resourced as the show. It would not have been as well supported as the show. And honestly, we conceived of it as a TV show, you know, but I think it does speak to how things shift and they ebb and they flow. And right now you have TV, these streaming services are trying to build up their libraries and build up their programming and lure people to their services. And as a result, they're taking a lot of big risks and they're making a lot of things that are things that major studios wouldn't take the same bets on in this moment. And that is reflective of the industry. But to me, again, in real life, it's not a thing that I am like incredibly bent out of shape about. It's a thing that we acknowledge and we play into it, but it's not lost on us. Like we understand how ironic that is. But at the same time, it was the best way to tell the story that we wanted to tell.
Do you think you're not incredibly bent out of shape?
In general?
In particular about that, because you had a pretty good swing at it. I mean, you guys got to make those movies.
Yes, for sure. And I don't think it's going to stop. You know what I mean? Like, I genuinely don't.
You think the doomerism stuff about Hollywood is overblown?
I totally do. And I think one movie changes the whole climate of the industry. And people are like, this kind of movie is never going to do well again. And then one comes out and does well, and everyone's like, oh, never mind, they will. Things shift, and it's a very fluid industry. And I think some people are always trying to define it, but it's a hard thing to define. And that's something that I think me and Evan are sort of try to be at peace with rather than trying to wrangle, you know? And that I think is what leads to us being like, oh, we have this idea. Seems like TV's where they'll let us do this. Okay, we'll make it into a TV show. Oh, we want to make this kind of movie. We got to call it Ninja Turtles. Okay, we'll call it Ninja Turtles. Like, that to us isn't like, it's fine. And some people hate that and they really rage against it. But we don't, you know. I've seen so many trends coming. We saw, you know, superhero movies weren't a thing now they're a thing. You know, people in the early 60s were like, Westerns, like, if it's not a Western, no one wants to see it. And now it's not like that anymore. You know, we've just seen that these things come and go. And I do think there will be movies like the ones we made that come out and capture the attention of the culture again. I just think today is not that day, but in 3 months it could happen.
In 2020, when pessimism was at an all-time high.
Yeah.
Where you and Evan felt like, oh boy.
Is this over?
Is this over?
Yeah.
Your company would do a virtual film club.
Yeah.
And one of the films you all watched was Y Tu Mama Tambien.
Uh-huh.
And you somehow, speaking of wrangling, got Alfonso Cuarón to come on the Zoom and talk about his experience with the movie and his experience with the industry at large.
Yes.
Do you remember that back and forth?
Very much so. I mean, it was amazing. And actually, it was very inspirational as to how we shot the show in a lot of ways.
Children of Men and the tracking shots.
Children of Men and the tracking shot. And Y Tu Mama Tambien has a lot of tracking shots, and a lot of the scenes are actually singular takes, you know? Yeah, and I remember he was saying that him and his cinematographer,
Chivo,
they had made a lot of films together, and they were like, let's just kind of throw everything out the window and kind of just do this as though we were doing whatever the fuck we wanted, basically, and not subscribe to the formalities of filmmaking and what we know is, you know, the rudimentary way to make a movie and the list of things you check off as you're putting a scene together. How would we do this? We just knew nothing about making movies, and we were just kind of capturing it, you know, and that's something that was very inspirational to me and Evan, and we came up in a very specific way of capturing comedy, especially, and hearing him say that was really exciting, and it's one of our favorite movies, and so this idea of like, let's try something similar, both in its ethos and in its literal sense, in, you know, what if we kind of just shot this in a way that was completely different how we'd ever done anything, and was really kind of throwing all the rules we understood out the window. And also the idea of doing long singular takes, we felt really added to like the narrative of the show, which was like one of panic and stress and uneasiness, and
the hits,
you know, all the hits.
you brought in Adam Newport-Berra,
the
cinematographer, to do that.
Yeah.
Very talented.
He's great guy. Yes. Unbelievable dude.
Did you find making comedy in that framework challenging?
Yes, but in a great way.
Not a ton of coverage.
No coverage ever. Like, I mean, it was literally as we were pointing the camera at whoever was talking, basically. And also trying to recreate cinematic moments within that, you know.
The show should come with Dramamine, but that's...
Yes, exactly. In a theater, it's a lot. But yeah, like we also wanted there to be wide shots, beautiful shots, and tracking shots, and, you know, things that found the characters, things that came from, you know, narratively set the scenes in different ways, you know. But yeah, the comedy especially is hard because comedy, I'm sure as you know, is like all about timing. And the thing you probably manipulate the most in the editing room is the timing of things, you know. And I think that these singular takes are also kind of a shorthand for showcases in ability in some ways. Like if there's a fight scene that's done all in one take, like what you take away from it is not only like the narrative desired impact, but you're like, wow, this is impressive. It's impressive that these people are able to do that. And I like the idea of showcasing the comedic abilities of the people on the show in that way, in a way where they, in the moment, were forced to create the rhythms that you are used to seeing as the finished product of a comedy. And I had a deep fear for the first few weeks of shooting that I knew the scripts were good and people were really responding to them and they were really funny scripts. And my fear was that we made the stylistic choice that was undercutting the comedy rather than bolstering it.
Where the timing would be...
Yeah, or just like, would
off.
It be better if we just... Yeah, exactly. You did it. Would it be better if we just shot it normal is what I kept kind of saying to Evan. It's like, should we just be shooting this normal? And he was like, no, crazy. Insane. Evan has... For wherever I lack confidence, Evan makes up for it, which is, I think, a good part of our dynamic.
Well, it's that dynamic I want to end with.
Yeah.
Because we have to go.
Great.
So it's my last question.
Let's do it.
In that decade between the interview and the studio, where you two were making other things, but certainly not your project.
Uh-huh.
And it was in part Cuarón who helped you find your way back to making something with that youthful spirit.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you had thought the first film you two wrote, Superbad, feels kind of like a more crass, younger version or prequel to Y Tu Mama Tambien.
Yeah, in some ways, for sure.
And I'm thinking about like the parallel final scenes, them in the diner.
Yeah.
Evan and Seth in the mall.
Yeah.
On the escalator going in opposite directions.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Seth. So, do you want to come buy me cover-up or something? I mean, you kind of owe me.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to do that. I had such bad acne last year that I pretty much became like an expert on the stuff. Evan drove me here though, so.
Well, I mean, I have my dad's car, so I could just give you a lift, and then Evan could take Becca home. Okay. If that works. I don't know if it's in your route.
That would be fine with me.
Fine, yeah. Maybe we can get some food.
Yeah, I'd like that.
So I guess I'll call you.
Yeah, give me a call. Yeah, you have my number.
I have your information, so put her there.
Perfect. So, good. All right, man.
Okay.
Okay, guys.
Becca.
Bye, guys. Bye, you guys. See you, Jules.
Yeah, it's funny. It's too funny.
Where do you want to go to eat?
So can you honestly help me figure out what kind of cover to get? I mean, I don't know.
I guess I'll always feel the same. I guess my last question is, you and Evan, your brains like have formed around working together.
Yes.
What does that look like after nearly 30 years?
It is our 30-year anniversary this year. We keep saying we should throw a party or something like that. It honestly probably looks shockingly similar to how it always looked. Like, I think we've gotten much better at it, honestly, over the years. We worked out some kinks. I think when we were younger, we would have more issues with one another's kind of working habits and styles at times. We have a very similar work ethic, and I think that has been very helpful to us, is that like neither of us is the lazy one, or neither of us is the one who isn't as passionate about the thing as the other one is, you know, and neither of us feels that though less work needs to go into a thing in order for it to be great. Like, we're very aligned as to what we feel is necessary in order to make something work in the way that we want it to. And we're also, our taste is essentially the same. And I know we picture the stuff the same as we're talking about it, which is also like a rare thing as we are talking about the tone of the scenes and the episodes and the jokes. Like, I just know we're picturing literally the exact same thing. So that's also very helpful, you know, but it's not lost on us. Like, we both feel very fortunate and grateful that we have a dynamic that's lasted so long, that we still enjoy hanging out with each other. We went, you know, we go to dinner, we see each other socially still, we go on trips together, you know, like we still actually like hanging out together, which is also not always how this goes, you know what I mean? So we don't take it for granted. And we know a lot of teams who have been together like as long as we have that have broken up over the years. And so we see that it can happen, and we're happy it hasn't happened to us.
I'm so glad it hasn't happened to you too.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
And at the risk of getting too sentimental, I just want to thank you for shaping in good ways and negative ways some of my childhood.
No problem. My pleasure. And I'm sorry.
And most importantly, I hope it's not a decade in between the next thing.
Me too. That'd be great. That'd be lovely.
Seth Rogen, thank you for the time.
Thank you for having me.
At Starbucks, we've more than doubled parental leave for full and part-time baristas, giving them up to 18 weeks of paid time off, so they can be there for early bedtimes, late nights, first laughs, and spend more time with the best company they know. At Starbucks, benefits like parental leave are just the start. Learn more about Starbucks industry-leading benefits at starbucks.com/partners.
The 7-seat Volvo EX90 is a car made for finding tranquility in midtown traffic, with a serene Scandinavian interior. Made to help avoid potential hazards along city streets, thanks to advanced safety features. And with intuitive technology and Google built in, it's the car made for finding the best bagel in Brooklyn. The fully electric Volvo EX90 is perfect for New York. Visit volvocars.com/US to learn more. Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
And that's our show. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to leave us 5 stars on Spotify, leave us a review on Apple. If you want to go above and beyond, you can share the program on social media and tag us at TalkEasyPod. I want to give a special thanks this week to the teams at IDPR and Apple, and of course, our guest, Seth Rogen. His excellent new series, The Studio, is now available to stream on Apple TV+. New episodes air every Wednesday. For more talks, I'd recommend my conversations with Judd Apatow, Natasha Lyonne, and Jesse Eisenberg. To hear those and more Lemonada podcasts, listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen. You can also subscribe to Lemonada Premium for bonus content. Just hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or head to lemonadapremium.com. If you want to purchase one of our mugs, they come in cream or navy. You can do so at talkeasypod.com/shop. Talk Easy is produced by Caroline Reebok. Our executive producer is Janixa Bravo. Today's talk was edited by Adam Jamal and Ariel Gardner and mixed by Andrew Vastola. It was taped out of Operation Podcast in Los Angeles, California. Our music is by Dylan Peck. Our illustrations are by Krisha Shenoy. Photographs today by Julius Chu, with additional research from Callie Conley. This episode was made in partnership with the good people at Lemonada Media, and I'm Sam Fragoso. Thank you for listening to Talk Easy. I'll see you back here next week with Jenny Slate. Until then, stay safe, and so long.
This episode is brought to you by FX's Alien Earth, the official podcast. Each week, host Adam Rogers is joined by guests, including the show's creator, cast, and crew, in this exclusive companion podcast. They will explore story elements, deep dive into character motivations, and offer an episode-by-episode behind-the-scenes breakdown of each terrifying chapter in this new series. Search FX's Alien Earth wherever you listen to podcasts.
Want to live better? We've got a lot of work to do. Join Chris Hemsworth in National Geographic's new Disney Plus original series, Limitless. Live Better Now.
I'm diving headfirst into cutting-edge science to uncover 3 powerful secrets to living better right now. The growth that occurs through any challenging experience is really what we seek.
Chris Hemsworth stars in Limitless. Live Better Now. Now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
It's showtime.